Right.
We are live.
So yeah, we're live. We're making a podcast here. So Tim, I'm a little frustrated and irritated if I'm really sitting here in my rainy studio in Seattle and you're like last week you were in LA walking around with palm trees playing a show for like 10,000 people, and then this week, am I right or wrong? Are you like at the beach cabana in Mexico or something? Where are you?
I'm just sipping some freaking vodka soda with lime in this grand resort, son.
Where are you? What city?
Cape Canaveral, Space Town, and where the space shuttles go off in Florida.
Oh man.
We just got off a super long tour with Bring Me the Horizon. It was super successful, but also super draining. So I promised my wife and kids we'd go on a vacation, and you and I had already blocked out Thursdays. So I told them this is my main thing I got to do, and then we're jumping in the pool, doing water slides, going to the beach, doing the whole 9 yards.
I don't know that I'd be able to pull this off. I would think my wife would probably kill me if I was doing that. Maybe she's occupied, or you have a cooler wife than me. I feel like she'd kill me if I got off tour and took her on a vacation because I'd been gone, and then I still had to do a bunch of work or be on the podcast.
Yeah, no. Elizabeth and Bridget are actually the same type of person, but yeah, they're both super sweet, and I've known your wife for 15 years or 10 years probably, but. Yeah, they're about the same. She doesn't love it, but I mean, it's always a balance where, she understands that the only reason why we can even come here is because of the things that we do. And, and she knows it's a passion of mine too, to just kind of always be creative and doing stuff. So she's really good at supporting me. And I'm also really good at knowing like that fine line of when enough is enough and really making, the family the priority and just saying no. And that's
you're probably right about
the last
that.
5 years.
You're probably right about that. There's one other factor that makes it go over smoother with you than me is I come home from tour with Emory money, and you come home from tour with Underoath money. So that's got to help.
That's true, yeah.
I come home from tour and take her to Red Robin and say, you better not complain.
This Happy Meal better be enough.
Yeah, it better be. It is too cool, but it really does. It does bring up the question of like just the whole thing of balancing work. I mean, because you're doing work now, and I know you said this is just your thing, but you just texted me you're on another call before this, so it's got to be hard to do. But the problem I have, and maybe you have the same one, is all of my work stuff is with my friends and people I like and people I know, and so it's gotten to the point where that's so blurry that there's just no difference, and almost everything goes through messaging and text these days for me. Email's so slim that I get texts all the time from people that I seem like a jerk if I'm ignoring, but so much business comes through very, very personal channels for me, like phone calls and texts. That seems like everything I do is over that, and there's just no distinction. I'm not doing a great job of managing it, to be honest, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's tough. I mean, I think that's something we all have to battle. And I really think the larger component of like just work and personal always melding it's cool, right? So like the funny stuff that you could talk about is just everything I do is deductible.
Yep.
Like this vacation's deductible. I came here to not only work, but I also run my wife and kids, but then I have other jobs like within this context. So this is my mobile office. So it's really interesting when you go to do taxes and you're like, pretty much everything I did all year had something to do with work. Mm-hmm. And you just want to be like a really honest dude, but you also recognize like every meal I buy, every drink I buy, it's generally somehow related to work because I work with all my friends. And that's like the best part. The worst part is you don't have friends.
Yeah, that's what I keep wondering. I say, wait a minute, are these people my friends? Or maybe they're not I think of them as my friends. That's like fundamentally question. Like, wait a minute. Are me and Tim friends? Are we friends? Are me and Toby friends? Or am I just valuable to him in business? I mean, I don't even know. Sometimes I get that freaked out about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the litmus test there is like, you and I talk more now because obviously we're doing a weekly podcast for, the next 3, 4, 5 weeks or however long we do, or keep it going or not, depending on whatever. But, I think we talk more now than we ever did. But for the, 8 or 9 years, we were just label mates. Like you and I would just go chill and grab beers and like geek out on guitar gear or touring ideas. And you kind of managed Emory and I kind of managed Underoath alongside our respective teams and still kind of do. You manage Emory actually now, and I still am just kind of the guy in the band that does more than maybe some other guys in the band.
Yeah.
So we were always friends for a long time. But then, yeah, as soon as there's mutual interest or a creative, collaborative idea, now we're talking more and more and more. So I think that's up friendship, and it also complicates it when things go weird.
Yep, that's true.
But yeah, I mean, when Underoath broke up, I saw Grant and James and Chris regularly. Never really saw Aaron and Spee. Obviously, Aaron was in Paramore and Spencer lived in New York. But all in all, we were still friends. But now that we're touring again, it's very much, you know, the intensity and the frequency of friendship has been doubled down on by professional interests as well. So yeah, it is a really interesting scenario.
And some people, I guess, like to have a work-life balance, but it's just, I don't know if that's even, it doesn't even make sense other than I need to put my phone down when I get home in the afternoon. I understand that. But it's, you know, a lot of people like to have their categories very separate so they could just get away from work and stuff like that. But for me, it's just kind of always been the opposite. I'm always looking to involve more people I like. And I think that's what friendship is. It's like being in war or battle or doing you put your heads together and move in a direction, and then you become, you have a relationship. I mean, even marriage is that way. It's like we've partnered together to accomplish a task. We've decided some things that we're doing and some things that we're not doing. Here we go. And then closeness and relationship are forged in that. I have no social life that I think of as, my friends that I just engage with for the sake of pure friendship. I don't even know if I have that.
Yeah. There's no random accountant that you only see when you guys have your movie dates once a month.
Right.
Like, that just doesn't exist for you.
That's right.
Or me. Yeah. And I think the difference is, like, a lot of people need to separate work and pleasure because their work isn't pleasurable. It weighs them down, you know? Mm-hmm. And I think for me, you know, I work with, you know, all of my friends. I mean, I'm in a band with 5 of my best friends. I work for Andy Mineo as part of his management team, and he and I have become, I say a similar thing. Andy and I were friends for years. Then we started working together, and I started helping him build his career, and now we're really, really good friends. And it's just because we have to talk more and we have to, like, learn each other's things more, but we were always friends, or at least acquaintances, I would, you know, venture to say. But now it's escalated to a point where we're like, our entire team, Zeke, Dell, we have this super rad, like, A squad, and we all pull different weights in different areas. And, you know, our power, you know, a great team. And we've become really good friends over the last year just because we've had to talk almost every day or multiple times a day. And similar with King State with Nate, you know, Nate Young from Amberlin, who I don't know if we've talked about that on your podcast or not, but, you know, we're brother-in-laws. We've been friends for like 18 years, and now we're business partners. And it's really just a natural progression, because I think the difference between people like you and I and everyone else in our circles and like a normal 9-to-5 job is, like, we work twice as much as people we love. And I think that's the difference.
Yeah.
You know, and I think there is, like, some scenarios where, I might make more money than X guy every once in a while, but damn sure I've worked 3 times as hard as that dude. So when you break it out hour for hour, I'm probably making minimum wage. I've just worked 10,000 hours for 5 years and got nothing for it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, that's for sure.
So I think that's really good perspective to keep.
And I tell you what, this is amazing to me. So I'm going to ask everybody to forgive if it's glitchy audio at all. But we're talking to Tim live from his vacation on his mobile phone on a podcast in a studio back to the internet live. So I will forgive personally, and I ask anybody else to forgive if there's any glitchiness with Tim. Just hang in there. But it is really cool. So the thing that occurs to me about that, about people that are working super hard at something, is I'm losing you entirely almost here. Do you hear me, Tim?
Sorry.
You can hear me, though, okay,
I just
right?
had a notification pop up.
Okay, no problem at all. No problem at all. So the thing about it is, it seems like if somebody works at something, I just don't know what to tell people when they're exploring the idea of they want to do what they love. I guess that is that something you typically tell people they should be doing or shouldn't be doing? Because it works for you, though. All right, I'm going to write this down to edit this spot out. Hopefully this will, between 15 and 17, it's pretty bad. So hopefully we can get this cleaned up. Tim, can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm trying to walk somewhere.
It was working really good a few minutes ago, but Take your time. We'll get this right. I know we're
do you
live,
have me
but
now?
it's okay. We're live, but I'll fix it on the podcast feed. Make an edit point there. But yeah, I think I hear you pretty good now.
Okay, if you can hear me now, I'll just stay here.
Okay. Yeah, and you hear me fine?
Perfect.
Okay, that's probably a little bit better. But I lost my train of thought. But what were you saying? We'll just reset back in wherever we were. But what were you saying last? I'm totally lost. No problem.
I think you asked me about the difference between people asking you to do a job that they love versus not.
Let me rephrase that another way, and we'll cut in here. So that doesn't ever make you rethink what you do, right? I mean, you at some point when Underoath stopped, you were looking at what I would call going straight, or no? Like you were looking for a normal job?
Yeah, I had a normal job.
You're trying to build that with merch line and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I worked for my friend Nate for 5 years, and James, our guitar player, still works there. Mm-hmm. And all of my best friends work there. Jay from the Almost works there.
Yep.
It's just a great company to work for and to work alongside. But yeah, I mean, I feel so burnt out on the entrepreneurial, build your own thing grind that they just need that consistency. And by the time I started working for Merchline, I was there. I felt like I was there. You know, I felt like I was in a spot where I had toured for so long and, you know, just kind of got burnt out. And, you know, if you go out for 1 or 2 tours a year and you make decent money, it's one thing. But when you have to tour 10 months a year just to pay your bills, that's another. And we just got so burnt out. And we had families. I was just like, I just need something that's consistent. And, you know, I built my life around that too. I mean, when we all bought houses or had a little bit of a good pocket in our career, I specifically remember going, I want to be able to survive on like a fraction of the money I'm making this year, because this year is not the norm. It's an exception. And I have to prepare for that. So I bought I have a nice house, but I bought a very modest house in comparison to what we were being offered by banks and things like that. And just all in all, just kind of built my life to where I could go somewhere and make a specific amount of money, a reasonable amount of money that anyone can do that works hard and still live comfortably. And that's what I did. And I did that for 5 or 6 years and really just started getting a little stir crazy.
Really?
And I think the one thing that I realized is like when you own your own band, when you co-own your own band, you own your own businesses, you become really unemployable really fast. And I think like people like you, I mean, I can't imagine you ever having a manager and then an assistant manager and then a department manager that you have a hierarchy of like Matt Carter shows up here, he does these things. When he steps over here, he gets written up and gets deducted or gets PTO. It's like, dude, if I want to take 2 weeks off, I just take 2 weeks off, you know? And it's up to me to make sure the ship doesn't go down. And if it goes down, then I get fired. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a really cool, dichotomy, because I think I thrive in those scenarios where
it's interesting.
I'm never not going to come to the table and get the work done. But sometimes I'll do it at midnight, and sometimes I'll do it at 5 a.m., and sometimes I'll do it from 12 to 5 or 9 to 5 like a normal person.
Yeah. I guess that maybe what that hinges on is just the word responsibility is what pops into my head there. So you take complete responsibility, whereas if you're working for somebody else, you're like, well, they hired me to do this, and this is what I do. So you just matter-of-factly can't be as productive. And it's also just not immersive of a thing. Like,
yeah, totally.
I was thinking about it this way earlier this week is, you need, if you're going to do your own thing, you just have to be a person that kind of thrives in chaos, for one. And then secondly, the thing that pays the dividends is the thing, like, you ever know when you're starting to buy a new car and you're looking at getting a Land Cruiser, let's say, and how many you'll notice driving on the road, for instance, right? You know, that phenomenon when you start looking at houses and then you analyze every house and what it must be worth. So whatever it is
you have a Camry and all of a sudden you can't not see Camry.
It's all, or if you're researching Camry. So whatever you're doing is that, and anything that you're doing for your own self, you know, if you're an immersive person that takes responsibility, it pays off so big that once you're immersed in things, not for 8 hours a day, but 24 hours a day, and it's pleasurable, then all the other ancillary things that could be considered work, they don't feel like work, but they all contribute. So maybe if I'm researching a topic or interested in a field like podcasting, all day, every day, if I see a good artwork somewhere for something in a coffee shop, I go, oh, that really sticks out. I wonder if my podcast could have art like that. Or,
Totally.
Everything's in your brain and you notice everything. Oh, that guy articulated a thing that way. Maybe I should try that. That's an interesting word. Or, man, I'm interested in the topic of philosophy this week, but I'm interested in it. But if somebody said, hey, you need to read 2 books on philosophy so your podcast will be, so you'll be better at your accounting job on your own time, it'd be like, hell no, of course not. So there's a collaborative effect if you are enjoying playing guitar and learning about guitar pedals. It's not for you. There's no possibility of doing that and thinking of it as work and being sustained. There's just no way you could do that. You couldn't do it.
Totally. And I think that I think there's also a huge push for me in surrounding yourself with creative people. I was just talking to Grant, our bass player, about this. You know Grant, but for everyone who doesn't know, and we were just talking about different lives and different paths that certain people take. Some of the different paths he's taken versus what I've taken, and vice versa. Some have been good for me and bad for him, and some have been great for him and bad for me, and all of that. But the one thing I realized is the pattern with all of us is that we've all done things based on the company we keep, and I've always been, and I think we touched on this last week when we were talking about, music and movement and stuff, things like that. But it's I've always been for friends in the band. I've always been I've always been the booking agent's friend, the manager's friend. So most of our conversations when we see each other for 2 hours have always been, things we're working on, ideas we have, trying to figure out how to make things come to life. So it's almost wired my brain to really understand that that's really what we're all doing here, at least in the music industry, in the creative space, is everyone has 1,000 ideas, but the people that are making the ideas happen are the people that have real value.
Yeah, that's right. I read that somewhere, and maybe I said it, but somebody said there's no such thing as an idea man. That's not a job. Doesn't exist.
Yeah, I'm the visionary. Well, that's really cool, but there's 1,000 visionaries.
Yeah.
And I think visionaries that get quoted as visionaries or titled visionaries are people that had vision and then also had a means of executing. And that's something that I've learned. It's not just surrounding yourself with people that feed into a positive way of achieving a goal, whether it be writing a record, managing an artist, starting a coffee company, starting a podcast, opening a bar, starting a whatever, real estate, game, anything you want to do. You not only have to surround yourself with people that have done it alongside you, better, worse, all of that, but then there's this whole other wing where you also have to recognize your weaknesses. And everyone knows what they know, but a lot of people aren't willing to deep dive into their own psyche and know what they don't know.
Oh, yeah.
And I think for me, something I've learned is when I stop trying to be the John Wayne of every single facet of my business or my partnership with someone or my assistance to someone, I realized that I'm more effective at my job. For instance, with Andy Mineo, I'm not an accountant, but I know the best accountants and the best business managers in the world. Mm-hmm. My job in that role isn't to tell a bunch of people I got it taken care of. It's dude, I know who to go to, and I'm going to put all of these people around us that are better than us at every single one of their fields, and that's why we pay them. It's not an expense, it's an investment for a more stable long-term business. Mm-hmm. Similar with King State, the coffee company, or Bad Christian, or Break It Down the podcast. It's you could do all of it probably, but you do these 2 things that only you can do, and then rest and learning your weaknesses and your strengths.
That's right.
And going, I don't want anyone to try to touch my strengths, but I definitely am fully okay with talking about my weaknesses, and I would more than gladly give that up along with a bunch of my own money just so I don't have to deal with it and I can run in the one way that I can do. Yeah. And that's really important, and that's where people get held up.
But people hear that wrong.
Everyone.
Sorry, we're having a little glitch again. But people hear that wrong and think, I don't have to do what I don't want to do. I just pay people to do stuff. I mean, you're privileged to know that if you do get yourself supported right, you probably are going to be successful anyway because you already have a track record and have had success. And, somebody starting out doesn't just go farm out and be able to pay everybody and expect it to ever work out kind of thing. So we come from a privileged position when we say that, but I just think that, it's taken me exactly my whole life to even begin to learn how to let go of stuff. But had I not been a control freak for the period of time that I was, I wouldn't have learned all the things that I know to let go of. So that's part of the balance of it as well. You know, like I never say accounting. I don't know anything about accounting. I say, well, I know a pretty decent amount about accounting, and I hate it. That's what I know. It's not that. Well, that's not my expert field. I mean, I do get it. I hate it. You know, basically.
Totally. I mean, I've done accounting for 2 businesses now, and I know that it's a chore, and it's not something I enjoy. But beyond that, there's other people that are better at it, and I lose money every year that I try to file my own taxes by myself because someone else knows how to do it better. Yeah. Someone else knows how to manage purchases better or financing better. So it saves you money in the long run. And you only know that because you've already done every single aspect of the business yourself for a decade. And now you can really have honest introspection. I don't know. A business owner or an idea man or a visionary.
Yeah. The other thing that's interesting that's come to me lately, and I know you're on this wavelength too, as we've discussed it, but it's like the way I negotiate has changed almost entirely. But after doing this bad Christian thing and getting it going and working with so many friends where they're actually dependent on you, and it's not just a band, but it's all these other things. My negotiating used to just try to get stuff as cheap as you can or whatever. And now I just don't use that anymore. Unless it's somebody I don't know and have no affiliation from, and then it's like, whatever. I mean, it's, I'd just like to get the highest deal I could on some whatever one-off deal with some company that I don't know or something, or even a freelance thing that nobody, But in general, if I'm going to have to work with the people, I have to give them at least as much money as that they will be stoked. I can't have anybody around me or my culture that feels like I'm not getting my fair share. That'll ruin the whole culture. So if you're one of my friends that I text with and we have a money deal, my question is not, here's what I offer you. It's like, here's the way I always phrase it lately, and it's worked so far, is what is the minimum amount of money that you will need to where you're stoked to do this completely? What's the lowest amount of money where you will be stoked to be doing this? And then if I can't afford it, I can't afford it. I understand that. But I don't want you to do it for really less. I don't want you to. And then that's really been working out for me lately so far. There's probably some stuff I need to tweak, but that's a premise I've been using to negotiate lately.
Yeah, and what's really cool is what that type of ethos does. And sorry if it's glitchy. I'm hearing you perfect, it's okay. So I hope that I'm coming back perfect.
Yeah, you're okay.
I mean, you have Bunda and Reba and all these people, and I mean, I think they're all sitting even right behind you. And the cool thing about like knowing where you're coming from and knowing that it's like honest and communal based, even though you have a business to run and your goal is to make money on top of all the expenses you pay everyone else, is that you can have conversations like this in public and there's not anything weird. You're not talking about, well, how do I get a raise? Like, what if I'm the ad guy and that we go from $25 million a year in ads to $500 million? Like, how am I going to get compensated? Like, there's a very clear dialogue of like, dude, I got to make this ship float, which means I can't give you everything you ever want. Because if I gave you that, like, nothing works. Mm-hmm. But there's also this really cool thing of like, I'm not coming at you to get the most out of you for the least money I can pay you and make you get a second job around Christmas. And I'm just sitting here bawling, And I think that's really important. And like, we've always run our businesses like that. I mean, as me personally, and then Underoath and all of our friends, it's like, I remember Randy coming to us in like 2005 going, you have the highest paid crew in the scene. Like, what the hell are you guys doing? With that, yeah. And it's like, but these people make our show go off without a hitch. And beyond that, like, they're my friends. Like, I know I could probably get a drum tech for $400 and an internship credit from some drum school. But like, no, like our dudes are going to make like really, really
What do you pay
money.
A drum tech range? You don't have to say a specific guy, but what kind of money do you pay a drum tech?
Drum techs normally, I think in our area, get between 500 and 700, I would say. Uh-huh. And we're at about 1,000. And I don't have anything about money. Like, I don't care about money. I think when people get weird about money, it's because they care too much. Yeah. It's like, someone constantly drilling home that they're not an alcoholic. It's like, oh, then you're actually the alcoholic. It's like, I think people that can't just be honest about things have some weird issue with it. But yeah, I mean, we pay, everyone in our crew makes $1,000 a week or more.
And how many people
which is
do you
more
have
money
on your crew?
Than my dad's ever made in his life.
How many people are on your crew?
So it's like 6. Uh-huh. So we have probably about $10,000 to $11,000 a week just in personal salaries.
Oh my gosh.
For our people that are our friends just to make our show happen. So people hear, oh, they made $5,000 or $10,000 or $20,000 last night. It's like, dude, yeah, we spent all of it on like everything, the lights, the truck, the crew, the bus. And so, I mean, it's really funny. I think Aaron Lunsford even touched on that in his book that he wrote. He's like, everyone thinks we're rich, and Underoath is probably the closest band to being rich from our scene because they kind of became the biggest for a minute.
Yeah.
And even those dudes finally just started making like what's considered good money.
Yeah.
Now we're, and I don't complain at all, but it's funny because, you know, you'll see $1 million come in like 6 months, and 80% of it is just gone. And then the other 20% of it's split 7 ways.
Yeah.
You know, between your manager and 6 members. So it's like it is a Tetris game. But yeah, I mean, it's like those dudes crush, and like and those things come from, you know, just long lines of figuring that out. And, you know, back in the day, we always paid our drum tech $600 to $750, and we had dudes like working in the headlining bands that were making $100 less than our tech. And it's like, I understand that, because when you're the guy, you have all the leverage. You're the boss. You own Bad Christian. You own Break It Down. Like, you could fire everyone behind you and hire interns now because you could put a PSA and 40,000 people would hit you up. You're not doing that for a reason, because you have ethics, and it's not about, like, what good is a castle when there's no one to eat at the table with?
Yeah.
You know, I'd rather make less money and have all my friends make enough money where on a day off we could all go get 5 beers and like have a rage night and just decompress. You know, but when there's only one dude on the tour making money and you're at the cocktail bar drinking so $15 Mai Tais alone.
That's right.
That's
like,
what a lot of bands are.
Would you want to, like, that's what I ask people a lot of times of myself, said, if this worked and was super successful, could that be bad? You know, like, what would be bad about it? Like what if I negotiated to get all the money and then I did? Whew, that would be horrible if it worked out. It really would. It'd be isolating and it wouldn't even be good. So you got to be careful with that whole mentality of, I don't know, whatever that is, but for sure I agree with that. I want to talk about another thing while you're on vacation here and shift gears. But tell me about this. Tell me about this VR stuff. I've been thinking a lot. I haven't ever touched VR, and I don't know almost anything about it, but I find myself thinking about it a lot. But tell me what you were talking about VR earlier.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, just on the Rebirth tour last year, a dude came with like a 360 camera and shot our set in VR. Ended up being pretty cool, but it was like kind of pre-market. And then this year we went back to San Francisco, and a VR company came and shot Bring Me the Horizon. But what's really interesting is that Chris, our keyboard player, has gotten really into VR. And he's actually started a VR company with one of our developer friends from Orlando. It's going to be insane.
Oh, I got to talk to him about this then. You give me 10 minutes of it, and I'll have him on sometime. Oh,
dude, I mean, I can't even tell you about it, because it's like, it's kind of, I don't know what it is, but there's like a bunch of NDA stuff.
Yeah.
They're talking to like Oculus Rift guys and stuff. It's wild. But like, anyway, we've been immersed in this just mainly through Chris, but then have a couple friends, mainly one of our friends, Joel from San Francisco, who works at a VR firm, and he audits content, and they work on a lot of other things. And he was just telling us all of these crazy things that are happening with VR technology now, all the way from like really weird, like, sex stuff to like really cool sex stuff, with like people that are in the military and like they have families back home, and there's ways to like make that experience work in a really like
nice,
I'm back home for a minute way, all the way down to like the really gross stuff that we don't need to get into. But like the really cool thing about it is like realizing how vast it is, and then realizing how augmented our reality is already. And then once we start living in VR and there's 360 cameras, like at this resort that I'm at, you could go to your local like VR spot and just get some mist and some heat sprayed on you, and then just look around and feel like you're there without having to go there. And that's a really extreme example, but it was just blowing my mind, because there's so much that like mentality starts in your brain, where you're like, you could literally have a piece of glass on your face and feel like you're somewhere else and someone else, whether it be good or bad or productive or non-productive. And how real it's going to be makes you start questioning like our own reality, our own existence, all of that stuff. Like, how did we get here? And there's the whole AI loop scenario, where as soon as we close the AI loop internally as a human race, we by and large put the odds that we're just an AI loop that thinks we're self-aware, but we're not, like at a huge level. And, you know, being people that were raised as like super conservative Christian people to believe that we're created and there's a purpose for everything and everyone decides everything they have, versus this very interesting VR way of thinking is just really interesting. I think we're all deconstructing faith in a pretty big way now. I don't think that like my parents' version of Christianity or my wife's parents' versions of Christianity are going to live past them. I think a lot of those things will die with them. And I don't think it was good or bad. I just think it was a transitional point for the ideas. But I also think it's like it's getting even weirder now where a lot of lines are being blurred and not in a scary way, but more just in a like you kind of hit that holy shit moment where you're like, wow, like this stuff is wild.
It seems like we're
going
getting
to be able
close
to fake it
on VR because I've been paying attention to stuff like that for a long time. I think about it a lot, but I intentionally, here's the thing that I do is I intentionally don't get into stuff that I know that I would get into. So I avoid VR because first of all, I don't think it's there yet. And I would probably get way into it, and I'd probably spend a bunch of money and time on technology that's not quite there yet. But as soon as the people, the guinea pigs, the Chris's, and the people out there are telling me it's ready and it's time to go and this is it, I want to be very early on it, and I think about it a lot. But I don't want to get into it because I think it would be so consuming. In fact, I was an audio guy for so long, I made myself not touch cameras or learn what cameras were on purpose. Like I knew I would understand aperture and frame rate, and I knew that's a thing that would be up my alley I could do, but I intentionally did not do it until recently. Like I've gotten through the audio thing, I've done music now and podcasts, and I was like, all right, bring some cameras in here. I'll start looking at, here we go. And now I kind of understand video and cameras a bit. Lighting is the same way, but VR is a whole nother level. I mean, it's going to be such a big deal in the future, and it's just limitless what it's going to be. But the thing that's the freakiest about it to me is that it can't be. I don't think it'll be wrong. I don't even think it's scary. I just think it's going to be normal, the same way that when you're texting, you just say I'm talking to Tim. Right? If I'm texting with you, I just say, I'm talking to Tim. And the first time texting came out, you just said, what do you mean you're talking to him? You're just pushing buttons on a phone and sending some words across that's not talking, is what you would have felt that was really foreign. The first time you ever could have messaged somebody to refer to that as I'm talking to them would have been bizarro. And VR is the same thing. You say, oh, I'm at the beach in Mexico. What are you talking about? You're in VR, man. But it will become, that will blur so far that it would just won't, you can say, I'm doing this thing online, and somebody else would say, no, you're sitting on a computer. No, I'm doing whatever I'm doing. And that's what VR is going to be. It's going to be so immersive and so common that it's just, the reality will be spoken of as realities without even the caveat that, oh, I mean a VR version of that. That'll go away in 5 years once it happens. You won't have to specify that you're doing something in VR anymore. It'll just be, it'll be considered real experience, period.
Yeah. And what's even more interesting is that with that is like to add to that, like my wife and I have that conversation a lot with our kids.
Yeah, don't even think about the kids. It'll be pure to them.
Yeah, she's not super conservative, but she's definitely like less into like dream casting, like the weird, like small nuances of our life that will die with us and our kids won't ever know. But even like thinking about like my kids are going to grow up with like weed being like beer. It's like, yo, let's get like 3 beers after the show. Like, no problem. You text your wife like, hey, babe, love to talk. Grabbing some beers with Matt. I'll call you after. Yeah. Like, that's going to be the same thing with weed with our kids. They're going to be like, yo, like, let's go to whatever and like smoke a blunt and then like, let's go check out a movie. And it's going to be completely calm.
That's true.
Place. Yeah. And then like, even with the whole like homosexuality thing that everyone's still up in arms about, it's like, dude, my kids are going to grow up and not even know the difference. They're just going to know that there's the one choice which is left and one choice that's right, and like not like correct as in left and right as in a direction. And that's basically it. Yeah. It's not a good or bad or like this big to do, and race and all that. I think we're just constantly going to start ironing these things out, I hope. And I'm doing my part to do that, to where my kids don't ever have to be faced with these weird, like, is it okay that I laugh at this? Or is it okay that I have a friend who's gay? Like, oh my God, like the world's ending. It's like, they're just never even going to know. It's just like, it's not even going to be, oh, I have a gay friend. It's like, oh, that's my friend. And then when someone asks like, oh, he has a boyfriend, it's fine, And so it's really interesting. And then the VR thing is like you said, that whole adaptation of that just being normal is going to happen. And then like, I think it's going to go even further, just similar to GoPros, but imagine a VR GoPro where instead of watching an Underoath show in VR, you can be me. You can be Aaron.
Yeah.
You could be Spencer. Like you could literally sit with a bag of potato chips, butt naked, with a huge piece of glasses on, and be Spencer in the front row.
So that would be the new version of Rock Band. Like instead of Underoath songs on Rock Band, you're literally sitting on stage in Aaron's seat, and you have the opportunity to see if you can pull it off. And you get to see Tim run up to you with his guitar and look at you and point at you, and you point back with the twirl of the drumstick and go right back into playing and see if you can pull off the vocals too. I mean, so what?
Dude,
it's your opportunity to try.
Dude.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's going to be a new like VIP experience.
Ooh, that's,
like
that's horribly horrifying though.
Buy a ticket to LA and get a free VIP pass to your favorite member at any other show. We're going to have cameras on the whole tour. So it's like, you get this really immersive experience that's bigger than watching a sound check or watching a documentary or watching a YouTube video update. It's like, dude, I'm watching this stuff real time. And then like, there's going to be some Fugazi punk rock bands. Like we don't charge. We just put cameras everywhere and it's open source and like break the whole thing down again. And it's like always going to be elevating and recycling.
Let me put a question to you and I'll let you go because I don't want to keep you long on vacation. But let me go back to something we talked about last week and tie it exactly to what you're talking about right now. Last week we were discussing the energy when you get all those people together and the way that looks and feels and what's really going on.
Oh, yeah.
Will that be simulatable in VR? Just like you'll have a crowd will you feel, for instance, nervous or stage fright, even though you know it's VR? Will it really be there, or is there some inescapable part of the energy that's intangible or immaterial? And if so, we know that power is so addictive and attractive. If you had the ability to not work on playing guitar to get good, to get fans, but you could walk into a VR thing and play for 5,000 people and they get to be James and play guitar with you at an Underoath show, how would anybody ever not just start doing that right away and live there for the rest of their life? Like as powerful as the power of the crowd, and if those things can be recreated, wouldn't it suck everybody in immediately just playing stadium arena video games instead of ever playing music or going on a date?
Yeah, totally. Well, so just to be clear, I got a 10% battery warning like 5 minutes ago. So if I cut off, that's what happened. And I'll see you next week. Thanks for listening. No, I think the biggest thing for me is like, it's going to be so immersive. And so my friend Joel from San Francisco, the VR dude, he brought this thing called a bass pack, right? And so it's for VR, it's for video games. It's a bass thing you strap to your body, and it's a full, like, it looks like a Camelback, like those mountain bike things. It's got multiple subwoofers, and as the bass goes up and down, like if you listen to like an EDM or a hip hop song, and it's like bing, boom, boom, bing, boom, it hits different parts of your back, which are scientifically placed there to make you feel like it's going up and then down, and you literally feel like you're sitting next to a subwoofer. So imagine, like, as that technology goes, you have a bass pack, you have legs, you have like a throat thing. It's hot when you walk in front of a light in VR, and then it gets cool as you walk away. Like, it's going to get like bodysuit level very soon, I believe, and it's going to be to a point where like it's going to help a lot of people. Like, you can't be at a birthday party or something. They're going to be able to enjoy this experience as if they were right there. It's going to be beautiful, which we even saw at the Super Bowl with, I think, Samsung or Subaru or something, where there was this immersive 3D, non-VR, but similar scenario with the troops and their families. It was beautiful. Like, there's going to be these good moments, and there's going to be really bad moments, you know, where like your 13-year-old kid's 400 pounds and thinks he's in Metallica, or your 17-year-old son's like can't be married because he keeps having success with, like, you know, Kim Kardashian, who's instead of selling porn tapes, selling like VR experiences where you're the guy, you know? Yeah. And that stuff's going to happen. So it's like with every good thing that happens, it's a bad thing. And as long as, and that's when we realize, like, it's not about like society raising our expectations or lowering them, or raising my children. Like, I have to raise my children to know that there's, you know, there's beer, there's alcohol, there's sex, there's drugs, there's morality, there's immorality. And, you know, they're going to have a curve that I don't have as they grow into their things. They're going to be like, oh, that's my old-fashioned dad, versus going, I can't believe my dad instilled this. I'm so glad I haven't done all of these things. I was able to achieve all of these things. And that's really my goal. But you're right. I think the VR thing is going to have a lot of like very damaging effects in the gaming lackadaisical world. It's also going to have a lot of beautiful effects. And there's a lot of people in the VR community that know that porn and disgusting things and murder scenes and like dude, everything you can imagine, which is crazy. Like you could be like, dude, I just always wanted to like stab an old lady, and someone's gonna like give you the opportunity to like murder.
Yeah, that's Westworld too. Basically.
Then not go to jail. Exactly. It's like, we're almost there. And so as you see in that, it's like there's a lot of bad people and there's a lot like a few good people, and I think there's a lot of people in VR that know it's coming. Yeah.
That we can title the episode that if you like.
I've never wanted to do that. Yeah, old lady gets stabbed on Break It Down podcast with Matt Carter. Only in virtual reality. But yeah, it's just one of those things where it's going to be there. And there's a lot of cool people that are understanding that the porn industry, just like movies, just like the internet, is going to be a huge industry. And they're actively working to equalize that and know that they can't stop it. So let's just make sure there's enough light where there's a lot of dark. And I really enjoy that. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, it's a brave way to look at it. You just got to hang in there and do it and not resist the technologies. I mean,
100%.
I have another whole thought, which we'll get into another time, of just, I think we're in the most dangerous time of all to get out of the technology loop. Like, we have the potential to be the biggest lame duck generation of all time, I believe. People that are our age do. I really do believe that. So I think, you just can't lean out of technology and say, it's for the kids. You could have gotten away with that in previous centuries and decades. You won't be able to in the future, or you just can't. And no generations below us, I believe they'll all be very adoptive of new technologies always. You know what I'm saying? 100%. So that one gap of people like us that grew up at the time we did without the internet, before this tech revolution, we're in the most danger of anybody of being obsolete
You're 100%.
beings. But anyway, thank you for giving me your time on your vacation. I hope you have a great time. I'm enjoying this very much, and we'll talk to you next week about whatever we can come up with.
It's my pleasure. I'll talk to you soon. See you guys next Thursday.
Thanks, Tim.
All right. See you guys.